She stood at the gate, ticket in hand, heart pounding with quiet pride. First class, something she'd worked her whole life to afford. But when the attendant's eyes met hers, everything changed. Whispers spread, stares burned, and suddenly her success didn't seem to matter. They said her seat was taken, but she knew it wasn't. What they didn't know was who she really was, or the secret that would soon turn their judgment into humiliation. Their dispute wasn't just about a seat on a plane. It was about dignity, power, and justice. For years, Maya had built her life around quiet strength. A software engineer from Atlanta, she'd climbed every ladder that once felt out of reach. Early mornings, late nights, and countless "you're not qualified" stares hadn't stopped her. Now, she was flying to New York to receive an award that symbolized everything she had fought for: innovation, leadership, and respect. To her, this trip wasn't just a flight. It was proof that she belonged in every space she once felt excluded from. At the airport, she felt a small surge of pride slipping that sleek ticket out of her purse. First class, embossed in gold. She observed the subdued glances that always seemed to follow the travelers who bustled with excitement around her. Despite this, she smiled, accustomed to facing underestimation. As the boarding announcement echoed, Maya gathered her things, ready to step into the comfort she had earned. But just as she approached the gate, something in the attendant's expression shifted. A tight smile, hesitant tone, and eyes that flickered from her ticket to her face. Maya didn't realize it yet, but the respect she thought she'd finally won was about to be tested in the most humiliating way. The attendant's polite tone cracked under the weight of hesitation. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she murmured, glancing quickly toward her supervisor. "There seems to be an issue with your ticket." Maya blinked, confused. She looked down at the embossed gold letters, her name, seat number, and confirmation code, everything in order. Around her, passengers continued boarding, businessmen in suits, designer bags slung over their shoulders. Not one of them was stopped. Not one of them questioned. She tried to keep her voice steady. "There must be a mistake. This is my seat." The attendant's expression tightened. "I'll have to ask you to step aside." Maya stepped back, heat rising in her chest as people behind her began to stare. A man muttered under his breath. Someone whispered, "Maybe she's in the wrong line." Each word chipped away at her calm, each glance a reminder of how easily dignity could be dismissed. Minutes dragged on. The supervisor arrived, a tall man with the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "first-class boarding is for our premium passengers. Are you sure you're in the right group?" The words hung heavy in the air. She could feel the burn of humiliation spread across her skin. She'd worked years for this moment, for respect, for acknowledgement, and now it was being stripped away in public like she didn't belong. She opened her mouth to explain, to show her confirmation again, but the man was already shaking his head. "We're fully booked," he said. "You'll need to wait until everyone else has boarded. We'll see if there's space left." Maya's stomach dropped. Around her, the line moved on, people brushing past, their silence louder than any insult. She watched as the cabin door began to close, her seat, her ticket, her right, all slipping away. But just as she turned to walk away, a voice called out from behind. "Excuse me, what's the problem here?" It came from a middle-aged woman, another passenger who had seen everything. "She was in line before me," the woman said firmly, "and I saw her ticket. First class." The supervisor froze, caught between irritation and fear. Other passengers began to whisper. Phones came out. A few started recording. The atmosphere shifted from quiet dismissal to public scrutiny. Maya didn't want attention. She wanted fairness. But as the camera lights blinked and murmurs spread through the gate, she realized something. Maybe silence wasn't the answer anymore. The attendant's smile faded completely. The supervisor leaned in, voice low. "Ma'am, can we speak privately?" Maya's heart pounded. Behind her, the whispers grew louder, phones still raised. Whatever happened next would not just decide her seat. It would expose something much bigger. And deep down, she knew. This was no longer about boarding a plane. It was about being seen. The air around the gate thickened with tension. Dozens of eyes were fixed on Maya, her hands still clutching the ticket that now felt like a weapon, proof of her worth in a place that suddenly denied it. The supervisor's voice grew sharper, more defensive. "Ma'am, please lower your tone," he said, as if she were the problem. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Lower her tone? After being humiliated, doubted, and singled out? She'd played calm her whole life, smiling through discomfort, swallowing pride to keep peace. But this time, something inside her snapped. Maya took a breath and stepped forward. "You said this seat was unavailable," she said, holding her phone up now. "Would you like to explain that to my followers?" A murmur swept through the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. The attendant's face turned pale. The supervisor's confidence cracked, his eyes darting toward the logo on his uniform, aware that this moment was no longer private. It was public, recorded, permanent. Then, from the corner of the gate, a voice broke through the chaos, calm, authoritative, and chillingly familiar. "What seems to be the issue here?" The crowd parted. An airline executive, flown in to handle a VIP passenger, stood frozen as he met Maya's gaze. He recognized her instantly, not as a customer, not as a random woman, but as the keynote speaker for the Global Tech Summit, the same summit the airline had sponsored. The silence was deafening. The man stammered, turning to his staff, panic washing over his face. She's our guest of honor." Every phone captured the moment. The attendants' faces fell. The same people who dismissed her now scrambled to apologize, to smile, to offer water, comfort, and excuses. But Maya didn't move. She stood still, composed, the ticket trembling slightly in her hand. The damage was already done. They'd stripped her dignity in front of strangers, and no apology could erase that. She looked straight at the camera, eyes steady, voice calm but heavy with truth. "This is what happens," she said quietly, "when people forget what respect looks like." And with that, she turned toward the plane, not as a passenger, but as a symbol of something much bigger than herself. When Maya finally took her seat, the cabin felt heavier than before. The murmurs outside hadn't stopped. Whispers of shame, disbelief, and guilt rippled through the crew like a quiet storm. The same supervisor who had doubted her now stood frozen by the door, his confidence gone. Maya didn't gloat, didn't raise her voice. She just sat in silence, the hum of the engine drowning out everything but her own heartbeat. By the time the plane landed in New York, the video had already gone viral. Millions had seen the clip, had seen how quickly respect turned to judgment and how easily success could be dismissed because of the color of someone's skin. The airline issued a public apology, promising to review internal training procedures. But Maya knew it was more than that. This wasn't just about policy, it was about perception, about how people like her were seen long before they were heard. Days later, when she walked on stage to deliver her keynote speech, the crowd rose to its feet. But she didn't speak about technology that day. She spoke about humanity, about dignity, about the cost of silence. Her voice didn't tremble. "Racism doesn't always wear a uniform," she said. "Sometimes it smiles at you while taking away your seat." The room was silent, every word sinking deep. That day, Maya's story became more than a moment. It became a movement. Proof that standing tall in the face of humiliation can shake the walls of power. Proof that exposure can bring change. But the question still lingers. How many more Mayas will have to endure humiliation before respect becomes the default, not the reward?